Webinar of FHOH, another webinar on cochlear implants. And today we are going to talk about cochlear implant experiences and best practice tips. Cochlear implants devices are small, complex devices that can help provide a sense of sound to the user. The technology was developed over 40 years ago, and it is in use in many parts of the world. In this session, users and professionals will share their knowledge and experience with cochlear implants for adults, as well as offer best practices tips. Today we have with us 5 speakers. The first one is Dr. Naamat Zach, speech and language pathologist and educational audiologist. Ms. Daria Pike, the treasurer of the European Federation of Hard of Hearing People and its representative on the Consumer and Professional Advocacy Committee. We have also Ms. Liz Hamlin, Director of Public Policy, Hearing Loss Association of America. With us is Ms. Joanna Chio of the Philippines, a graphic designer and cochlear implant user. The last speaker will be Dr. Ruth Warwick, President of the International Federation of Hard of Hearing People. I myself am Avi Blau. I am the Vice President of the International Federation of Hard of Hearing People. Every speaker will have about 10 minutes to present several slides or to speak without slides. And after the speakers will speak, we will have time for questions. And from my experience, this is the most interesting part of the webinar. So I hope all of you will stay with us to this part. Also, I want to say a few words of thank you to Ida, who is helping us to organize this webinar. We also have a captioner, Mary, who is helping us with the captions, and an interpreter, Lisa, who is interpreting to sign language. If you want to see the captions, you have 2 ways to do it. The first way is to turn on the captions on Zoom. There is a special button for this in Zoom. The button is labeled CC. And if you press on this button, you have several options. One of them is show subtitle. This is the one you have to choose, and then you can see the captions inside Zoom. There is another way to see the captions. I prefer the second way, and because you can see the captions a little better. And the second way is to go to the chat of Zoom. If you open the chat, you can see a link to the captions. And when you press this link, you will see a special window opening with the captions in this window. You can change the size and place of this window. Usually the best way is to make this window low and wide and put it just below the window of the Zoom. So you can see the captions just below the Zoom. So everyone who want to try it, you are welcome. Just press the link in the chat, the link to the captions, and then adjust the windows so you can see the captions in the best way for you. Okay, so we are done with the introductions, and I would like to start the webinar by inviting Dr. Naamat Sach to have the first presentation. Naama, please.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Avi, for the kind introduction, and thanks to the organizers for inviting me today. My name is Naamat Sach, and I'm an audiologist and speech and language pathologist. I'm originally from Israel, but I live in Maryland in the United States, and I'm active in the American Cochlear Implant Alliance. I'm the moderator and the author of the American Cochlear Implant Alliance adult rehabilitation blog. I've been working with adults following cochlear implantation since 2001, and I will try to point out briefly the main issues that you may consider when thinking about the possibility of going through cochlear implantation. I believe there are people in the audience who have severe to profound hearing loss. Severe to profound hearing loss is defined as without amplification, one has audiometric pure tone average greater than 70 dB. By saying severe hearing loss, we refer to thresholds between 70 and 90 dB. In profound hearing loss, the pure tone average is greater than 90 dB hearing level, as you can see in this audiogram. So when speaking about potential CI candidates, we are talking about people with severe to profound hearing loss who don't benefit enough from conventional hearing aids, so they cannot understand speech without speech reading, even with the best and the latest hearing aid technology. Another group of potential candidates would be people who have progressive severe hearing loss, meaning that their hearing worsen very quickly over time. I believe that all of you know something about cochlear implants, so I'll just go through it very briefly. Here is an illustration of cochlear implant. It has external and internal parts. The internal parts are the electrode that inserted into the inner ear to the cochlea, and a receiver that is installed in the bone under the skin. The external parts are the speech processor that's usually located behind the ear, and the speech processor directs the signal through a cable to a headpiece attached by a magnet to the implanted receiver. Here is another configuration of the external parts. While in the big picture, you can see the most common configuration of the on-the-ear processor. On the two side picture, you can see people wearing off-the-ear speech processors. Unlike hearing aids that mainly help overcome the hearing difficulties by amplifying the sounds, the cochlear implant helps in process them. The CI helps in differentiating between sounds, identifying speech sounds, and it improves speech clarity. It provides better access to larger frequency range and to soft sounds and to distant sounds. The difference between a cochlear implant and hearing aids are critical because the more severe the hearing loss, the more difficult it is to process and understand speech. For most people with severe to profound hearing loss, even the most advanced hearing aid would not provide the acoustic information and the clarity that cochlear implant can provide. Some statistics. Of the people aged 21 to 69 in the US who can benefit from hearing aids, how many of them use hearing aids? So the answer is 20%. The numbers are going up when talking about older people, but still, only 30% of people over the age of 70 who can enjoy hearing aids actually use them. About 2.2 million Americans over the age of 12 have bilateral severe to profound hearing loss. Of this group of people, less than 10% have cochlear implant. There are millions of people around the globe who can benefit from this technology, but for many reasons, they do not. The low uptake likely conflicts with the evidence showing that for many people with severe to profound hearing loss, cochlear implant can contribute more than the best fitted hearing aids to communication and to quality of life, including their well-being, self-esteem, and psychological health. So what are the main reasons for this controversy? Cochlear implantations criteria have been changing and are still changing. So people who inquired about the implant 5 years ago, for example, and were found unsuitable for implantation may be approved today. As the clinical experience and research accumulate and the technology progress, we learn that cochlear implants can suit more people with less severe hearing loss. For many people with severe to profound hearing loss, a CI can be a better solution for significantly better speech understanding than conventional hearing aids. Many people who struggle to communicate with hearing aids and whose hearing loss wasn't considered severe enough to be a CI candidate in the past, having only severe and not profound hearing loss, are considered today as possible candidates. Another important change in candidacy criteria is age. In the past decade, many people at an older age were implanted and regained their hearing and quality of life. An additional reason that may prevent many people from considering cochlear implantation is the financial aspect and lack of updated information regarding insurance coverage. You might be surprised to learn that cochlear implantation covered today by many insurances in many countries that did not cover this in the past. Fear of medical procedure. This is a significant issue, but it is essential to say that this medical practice has become safer and more comfortable over the years. Cochlear implantation surgery is now performed using minimally invasive surgical techniques. During the meeting with the surgeon, you can share your concerns and get answers that can significantly help. Many people are not aware of the benefits that cochlear implantation can provide. Although the implant is not considered a life-saving device, for many it is a device that significantly contributes to their quality of life. There are many personal stories and testimonials online that can give you a sense of what it is like to live and to hear with cochlear implant and how it can contribute to your everyday life. There are many resources, such as the American Cochlear Implant Alliance website, where you can find the most up-to-date information and answers to many questions. However, it is important to note that not everybody gets the same benefits from the cochlear implants. One device can result in many different ways, in different benefits as it is affected by various subjective factors of the CI user. There are some other reasons for people not to be interested in going through cochlear implantation, such as lack of family support, social and cultural identity, and more. However, the result is that more than 90% of people who, accordingly to their hearing loss severity, can benefit from cochlear implantation do not go through it, and those that do it considerably late. A common statement among many people who have undergone cochlear implantation is, why did it take me so long to have my cochlear implant done? You can find it in many Facebook groups, such as Cochlear Implant Alliance, Cochlear Implant Experiences, Cochlear Implant Users, and more. So if you're experiencing severe to profound hearing loss and your hearing aids don't give you enough clarity, and if you're interested in improving your hearing, the important thing is not to give up and consider the option of going through cochlear implantation. Ask your primary care physician, ENT, or audiologist for a referral to a cochlear implant center to go through a cochlear implant evaluation. Not every healthcare professional is knowledgeable enough about cochlear implant candidacy criteria that are changing over time. Your primary care physician and even your ENT and your audiologist might unintentionally mislead you that cochlear implant is not right for you. To get a clearer, established answer, full diagnosis at a CI center is needed. At a CI center, you will undergo various tests and evaluations, including medical and hearing tests. Maybe for the first time, you will take speech perception tests in quiet and in noise. The team would want to know beyond your audiogram. What is your ability to understand speech? In other words, how functional is your hearing with your hearing aids? Some people will go through lip reading evaluation, and in some centers, even psychological evaluation may be conducted. After undergoing various evaluations and providing a lot of information about your hearing, about your lifestyle and communication, you will be scheduled for a concluding appointment with your doctor and your audiologist. They should be able to tell you whether a cochlear implant is likely to benefit you significantly more than hearing aids. They will also explain to you what are the expected benefits and tell you about the rehabilitation process. You will then have all the information you need to decide whether cochlear implantation would be your path, or if you prefer to stay with your hearing aids. Most people, even if they do not qualify for a cochlear implant or choose not to go through it, will gain value from this process. The cochlear implant itself, the operation, is just the beginning. After the surgery, there is a process of adapting to the CI, adjusting it, and engaging in auditory learning. The main progress usually happens during the first year or 2 years post-surgery, but will still continue on for a longer time. Just a minute. Oops.
And anything else?
Yeah, I think that might, just a minute.
Well, we are a little over time, so.
Yeah, so I'll just say that what is important to remember is that the surgery is only the beginning, and there is a long auditory rehabilitation afterwards. It depends on subjective factors. And overall, it is important if you're considering or if you thought about it, I encourage you to go and search it and try to figure out if this is your best way to use your hearing. Cochlear implant reduce difficulties resulting from hearing loss. It improves access to sound and speech understanding in ways that hearing aids cannot do. It contributes to easy communication or easier communication and with less efforts and enjoyment of listening. It improves participating in hearing related activities and contributes to the sense of well-being and to the overall quality of life. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Naama, for a wonderful presentation. And before we go to the next speaker, I want to say to the listeners that you can, if you have questions, you can type them in the Q&A options of Zoom or in the chat of Zoom, and we will try to answer the questions. Sometimes we will have questions between the speakers if we have time. If not, the questions will be asked and answered after all the speakers will finish their presentations. So please, questions in the Q&A or in the chat. Now, I would like to invite our second speakers, Ms. Daria Pike from FHOH. She is the representative of the European Federation of Hard of Hearing People on the Consumer and Professional Advocacy Committee. Daria, please, the floor is yours. You are muted, Daria. Please unmute yourself. Well, we are waiting for Daria. She probably have some technical difficulties to unmute herself. We still don't hear you. Gina, is there a way to help Daria?
She needs to unmute herself.
Yeah, hi. So I keep sending the request to unmute, but I cannot unmute her on my own. Alternatively, Daria, you can press Alt and A at the same time, and it should unmute you as well.
Okay, Daria is no longer in the list of presenters.
I'm not myself, but I am really sorry. I have problems how to share my screen.
Okay, it's fine now. We can hear you. So please, you can start your presentation.
Okay, I see this. Sure. And now this. Okay, so I was successful. Happy to me. So I'm really sorry for this, and hello to everybody. As they present me, my name is Daria Pajek. I'm from Slovenia. Today I will share with you my personal experience, how I got cochlear implants, and what happened before, between, and after I got it. Also, I would like to mention in short how hearing loss affected me and my life. Before I start, I would like to go over the outline. In today's presentation, I will speak about my experience. I will mention phases of acceptance, impact of hearing loss on individual. We go shortly through my implantation and situation in Slovenia, and the conclusion. So I am occupational therapist by profession, as well as freelance consultant in the field of social care services. I work as one of the leaders in the largest center for people with mental and physical disorders in Slovenia, and I need to hear very well at my job. I joined the Deaf and Hard of Hearing organization in 2008, and in recent years, I has also been involved in raising public awareness of the problem of people with hearing difficulties in different levels. I'm happy that I'm included in FHOH also. I lost my hearing in adulthood after studying when I was 23, and it was so hard to accept. I did not, in fact, accept this for many years. I was user of several different types of hearing aids more than 23 years. And in 2014, I got a cochlear implant on the left side. And this changed my life really dramatically. In 2020, so in COVID year, I got it also in the right side. So, in my opinion, it is necessary to know how we accept situation in our lives. There are 4 phases of acceptance. How long each phase takes place depends on the individual as well as the environment in which he or she lives. It is easy to talk about that phases. Theory is so simple, but what about real life, our lives, or my life? When an individual can talk about his feelings, fears, experiences, we can talk about the stage of accepting the situation. Then you can honestly look at the situation in which you are capable of realistic assessments of the situation in which you find yourself and a positive view of the possibilities that you have. In this period, you are somehow inclined to get involved in self-help groups. With the awareness that our lives, despite the loss, are moving further and repositioning, we begin to build our activities again and set a new quality of our lives. And we are searching solutions. You often must suggest a solution by yourself, but it happens that personal doctors do not know cochlear implants. So, about cochlear implant, even is now quite well known. There are also many questions about it. The main thing is if it works and how you will hear. No one knows, but if medically everything is fine, then chances are good that the implant will serve the purpose well. Before you decide on a cochlear implants, you need to research them, talk about it. Cochlear implants is advised when hearing aids is no longer sufficient. It is necessary to know how to use cochlear implants with its technical accessories and to understand the limitations. Ready to be in rehabilitation, take time for yourself. When I received my first implant in 2014, I did not have enough information. Above all, I was looking for users' information to share experience and fears with me. Sometimes it happens that you simply do not remember to search for information on the web, and often, and for many people, language and ingenuity are also an obstacle. And of course, the shock of the deafness you suddenly found yourself in. First month after surgery, I was completely deaf and in the shock, then completely unaware of what will happen to me. They explained it to me before, but I didn't understand many things because I didn't I didn't hear that. But I wanted to arrange things by myself without the help of others. When I remembered that there is a social network and support groups, it was much easier for me as I got support from different parts of the world and most of all the answers that I am not alone. Since there was also no information about rehabilitation, after the first shock, I approached the solution of the problem myself and prepared a rehabilitation plan. From easy to hard, from simple to complex, and most of all, I wore the implant 8 to 14 or more hours a day, no matter how bothered I was that the sound of the environment were unfamiliar and strange. I preserved and walked frequently to the settings. Then the speech therapist suggested that I be included in listening exercises, which was unique to me. Practically, my full plan can be seen in this pyramid display. I started by recognizing sounds in the environment, words, sentences, text, continuing with the music, and of course listening in the crowd. In the beginning, I helped myself a lot with viewing memory subtitles. I choose to listen via audio cable, Bluetooth, in different environments with differently integrate text. And in the end, it was my great success to hear speech on TV, radio, and on the phone without any assisting listening devices, without Bluetooth and without any cables. The guided rehabilitation process took place first with the evaluation of auditory comprehension, followed by training with a speech therapist, assessment, and then training at home. In any case, it is necessary to emphasize that the support of the family and the wider environment is needed. So, and here I am in the fittings after my first after I got first cochlear implants. That is from my implantation in our clinic. So, and it's always interesting to know how the cochlear implant acquisition system is regulated in different parts of the world. I'm extremely pleased with our system. It is true that there were some problems at the beginning, but this is how now greatly improved with the awareness. In Slovenia, the system is regulated through health insurance, to which we all contribute. So, complete care is covered by health insurance. Investigations before cochlear implant, sick leave during the investigation process, sick leave during the implantation and rehabilitation. That is very important. I stayed at home 5 months, in fact, staying in the hospital about 4 days or more if there are any problems. First fitting is usually 10 days after surgery. Fittings of cochlear implants, we don't have, in fact, limits about that. You can have so many fittings as you need, as you think you need. Listening exercises at school for deaf and hard of hearing, it is covers 10 visits or more if you need, and psychologists and psychiatrics if you need anybody of them. To have cochlear implant means lifelong care for the person. So changing of processors every five years, we have such a possibility. Some assistive listening devices, we have special technical lists about that technical devices, and we need to pay only 20% by own funds. Communication allowance, financial aid to adults in the amount of 150 euros per month. We have also more free days in our jobs because of disability and possibility to get 2 implants. After receiving the implant, you are regularly treated at the clinic where you have arranged fittings, communication with the speech therapist, your surgeon if you need it. It is particularly good that everyone's response is good, even by email. There are some problems only with the services and their responsiveness. We are still working on that. So, is it simple? No, it is not simple, but you need to read the written instruction and you need to be active. Cochlear implant has a lot of possibilities, but many people do not know them and do not use. When I received the second implant, I was faced with the challenge of how to connect both processors, Rondo 2 and Rondo 3, while listening to music. One has some kind of induction loop, and the other one has a Bluetooth connection. So that was quite a big problem for me. And when you see all that things, yes, you can afraid a little sometimes. And is it simple to manipulate or to use? Well, some pieces of cochlear implants are so small and it is hard to manipulate with them. And if you do not read the instruction, you cannot know what they are for. What can you do yourself if you do not have the support and information? Write a brochure. You can find much information on your website. You have your own experience. Of course, you need to connect with experts. And you can open a self-help group on a social network in your native language. But this takes time and energy, but that is very successful. And I made a social group in Slovenian environment, and we have a lot of members and we help each others very much. And what to do when you find yourself facing a problem and don't know how to solve it? We often don't remember what we can do. Well, these are the options we have. Read the instructions you received, check the manufacturer's website, check on YouTube. There are a lot of videos with explanations, ask in support group, write on FB. Companies have their FB sites and they answer and explain quickly. Also ask in the store. So that is my audiograms before and after. Before first audiogram is before implantations, and you can see that I was unable to hear, in fact, and the right one is after I got the second implant. I am still in rehabilitation process, and I need to work in my fittings in the future. And so, because cochlear implant is important for you, you need to take care for them. I read many times that some pets of the owners of cochlear implants have a little fun with cochlear implants, so it is necessary to take care for them. And so I find a solution with this very hard box. And for the conclusion, understanding the implantation process and the rehabilitation after it, that is necessary. Involving adults with cochlear implants in listening exercises. Knowledge of the processor and available accessories. Knowledge and methods of performing exercise in the home environment. You need a lot of motivation. Understanding from the environment of what hearing loss means and what is listening with a device. That is very important because it's not so simple as people many times think. And yes, you have sometimes negative feelings. You don't feel good and you have everything enough. And then you really need the support. And for the end, here is just a few Seaborg ladies from our support group of cochlear implants before COVID time, yes. And there is the talk of my daughter after I got my first implant. Thank you very much. That is all.
Okay, thank you very much, Daria, for a very nice presentation of a cochlear implant user. It's very good
Thank you.
to see this evidence. Okay, I would like to remind the audience that you can ask questions at the Q&A section of Zoom. And I would like to ask the panelists that please look at the Q&A, and if you see questions that you can answer, you can type the answer directly there. It will save us some time after that. Maybe we will read some of the answers and questions, but we will see at the end how much time we will have. Okay, now I would like to go to our next speaker. And before going to the next speaker, I would like to ask the panelists to pay attention to the time. We are a little over time, so please be short and do the presentation on time. I will show you a 1 minute notice. So please look from time to time on my picture in Zoom, and you will see the notice when I present it. Okay, our next speaker is Ms. Liz Hamlin, Director of Public Policy, Hearing Loss Association of America. Liz, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me today. It's been already very interesting, and now I'm ready to move to Slovenia to get more services than I can get in the US. So, I want to tell you a little bit about me. I'm the Director of Public Policy at Hearing Loss Association of America. We do information, advocacy, support, and education for people with hearing loss. We focus on the US, but we have joined several international groups as well, focusing actually on getting more recipients for cochlear implants, particularly because the numbers are so low, as you heard from our first presentation. Now for me, I grew up with single-sided deafness. It had not been discovered until I went into first grade. They gave me the little screening where I learned that I was profoundly deaf on one side. But at that time, cochlear implants weren't around. I could not get any kind of services, and they thought a hearing aid would not really do anything for me. So they told me just to sit in the front of the class, which I did. My hearing loss had been stable for the time after that until I was 28 years old. And then I had a sudden, literally overnight hearing loss. So I went from having full hearing on one side to having a severe to profound hearing loss, which of course totally changed my life and how I interacted with other people. I got a hearing aid, and I looked into getting a cochlear implant at that time. And this was about 1984, around that time. And they told me, no, you are not eligible for a cochlear implant because you do not have bilateral profound hearing loss. So I went forward, and I was a heavy user of assistive technology at that point. So I was using an FM system. I had a personal FM system. When I went into wide area listening systems, I used either a hearing induction loop, or I used an FM system or infrared, whatever was available when it was available. And certainly it wasn't available all the time. I used captions phones in the US when they became available, and certainly volume control when I did that. So years later, so in around 2010, I started looking, a little bit before, I started looking around for cochlear implants again because the eligibility requirements had changed. And now I'm eligible in 2010, and that's when I got my cochlear implant. Since that time, just last year, the FDA has ruled now that cochlear implant, the FDA being the Food and Drug Administration in the US, has ruled that they have approved cochlear implantation for people with single-sided deafness or asymmetrical hearing loss. So that now, if I'd approached them the first time with these criteria, I could have gotten it way back then, but no. So, but people now can get it, and one of my coworkers has a cochlear implant with single-sided deafness and finds it works very well for her. Now, I wanted to note a couple of things here. One of the things that struck me about going into the process was I had been having a hearing aid and was fitted for hearing aid for many years. And yet, when it came time to really get serious about getting a cochlear implant, it was my boss, the former executive director of Hearing Loss Association of America, Brenda Batat, who really encouraged me to get one. Not my audiologist. The audiologist did not say a word to me. She was not encouraging me to do this. And part of that, I think, is that there's no incentive. Her incentive to seeing me was every year, her bread and butter was selling me that hearing aid every 6-8 years. She was not doing what she should have been. And that's not true for all audiologists. I don't want to paint a broad brush, but I think that it's a problem in the US that there's not more incentive for audiologists to say, you know, it's time for you to get a cochlear implant. Now, after I got the surgery, I found that, first of all, I didn't have all of the things that Daja was saying that she had, but there is in the US, most private insurance do cover a cochlear implant for most of it. It's usually maybe 10, 20% that you pay for yourself, but that's still available. Medicare pays for it, and so does, in some states, Medicaid, which is for people with low income, but that's not every state, and it's difficult for them. But for me, I went through all the testing, I qualified, and I got my cochlear implant. But it was no stay overnight. It was outpatient. So I went in there, they did about 3 or 4 hour surgery. I recovered in the recovery room, and then I was out. And that is the typical procedure in the United States. They do not keep you overnight. Not everywhere. Again, there are some hospitals that will keep you overnight, but overnight's it, that's it. And then again, I'm talking pre-COVID. I can't say what's happening now, but it was typically and is a typically outpatient surgery. Now, I am not a poster child for cochlear implants. It wasn't, when they put it on, I didn't say, oh my God, I can hear again. No, it was a very slow and gradual road to getting better hearing. And in fact, when I first got my cochlear implant, I said, okay, I really want to look into getting rehabilitation, oral rehabilitation services. And they said, you're not hearing well enough. If you're not doing well, don't you need rehabilitation? But no, they said that not right away. And then later, there were hoops to jump. One of them was that the easiest way for me to get oral rehabilitation was to go back to the surgical center where I had the cochlear implant surgery itself. But that's an hour away, one way. So it'd be 2 hours investment of my time just to get there. And I would need to do this regularly on top of the work I did, on top of my home responsibilities. So I never went to a clinic for oral rehabilitation. And I think for me, that's a real lack. When in the US, when a child is implanted, every child gets oral rehabilitation. It's a part of the package. They work with the parents, they work with the child, and it's a part of what happens. But for adults, it's like, okay, bye-bye, you're done. I've mapped you. I've gotten what we need from you, and you're gone. And I think that there not enough emphasis is put on helping adults with a cochlear implant do better. Nonetheless, I found that I did do better on my own. I increasingly got better with the cochlear implant just by using it. I kept it on all the time. Now, again, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. You're supposed to take off your hearing aid and really let that cochlear implant teach your brain how to hear again. But I was working. The hearing aid was giving me enough information about words and communication. Again, I told you I wasn't a poster child, so I was hearing muffled sound, and I wanted to be able to work. So I kept the hearing aid on and the cochlear implant on, but from dawn to dusk, dawn to night. It was the last thing I take off at night. So it's important to have that, and that helped me get better. And frankly, the truth is I love the sound I hear. I still don't hear words crisply like I do with my hearing aid. I don't hear that, but I have bilateral sound, which I never realized was so wonderful. And I got to hear better in noise, and I got to hear music. I had stopped listening to music once I reached a profound hearing loss. And now music is a wonderful, wonderful thing that I've gone back to, and I love hearing. So my tips are that we need greater awareness among consumers. It's criminal to me that only 10% worldwide of people who are eligible are getting cochlear implants. More people should benefit. Audiologists really need to come on board. They are the logical people to encourage people to get cochlear implant. We need to see more. We need to know why they're not doing it. I only speculate, but we don't know. Let's do more. We need more rehab. I think rehabilitation is really part of the reason I think consumers worry is I'm going into surgery and nobody is promising me anything. So I'm going to, so that's okay if I have a profound loss, I have nothing to lose, but people who have some residual hearing might be hesitant. We have to make it more appealing to people who are or possible recipients. And the other thing, in some countries, you can get batteries, T-mics, cables, ongoing for the life of the cochlear implant. That should be part of the package. We should be advocating around the world to make sure that, particularly if you're low income, if you have not enough income to get all those peripherals, then what happens when your battery dies? It's really important to support and provide access to people with hearing loss across the world and throughout their own life to make sure they can benefit as well as they can from the cochlear implant. So I want to thank you again for inviting me. I know I went a little bit over my time, but I hope that that I contributed and helped everybody else see what the experiences of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Very nice presentation and important information. And I would like to go right to our next presenter. We are a little over time, so I'm asking again to pay attention to the time. Miss Joanna Chio, this is the right name, as I say it? I hope so. She's of the Philippines. She's a graphic designer and cochlear implant user. And Joanna, please, the floor is yours.
More than 20 years ago, my mother cried because in a span of 6 years, not one, not two, but 3 out of her 4 children were born profoundly deaf. As people with no hearing problems, my parents were at a loss like many people would be, until they first learned of cochlear implants. Research was done, observations were made, surgeries were pushed through, and finally, speech therapy was followed. This resulted in me being able to speak to you all about my experiences as a cochlear implant user. As much as I'd like to talk more about my parents' journey as parents of cochlear implanted children, this is another story to tell. I'll have you know that I'm grateful that they allowed me to hear and to speak. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Thank you also, Mad L. Once again, good day, everyone. My name is Joanna Camille. You can call me Mimi for short. I am now 24 years old. It has been 21 years. I am a cochlear implant user, and I have an invisible disability. I have an invisible disability because not only I can converse with anyone and listen to music like any hearing person would, but also I can sleep peacefully with any loud noises, like any deaf person would. I always tell my roommates this, just in case this was their concern. Turns out, I'm the noisy one because I talk a lot in my sleep. How embarrassing. This reminds me of how my parents would wish I could speak when I was younger. But now, they probably want me to be quiet because I became extremely talkative. Blame speech therapy. Just to clarify, I was born profoundly deaf on both ears and I only have one cochlear implant. Therefore, I am a unilateral user. With this, I usually have problems with finding the direction of sounds. Whenever my friends try to call me from afar, I always have to turn my head to find where they're calling me from. Having only one cochlear implant may work, but if you're considering two, it's not a bad idea either. Maybe even better. But no one really notices that I hear only on one side. Not until I tell them. That's why I always have to inform people around me of my hearing impairment. Especially since I attend mainstream schools without shadow teachers. They would then know why if I don't immediately respond to their calls and why they may need to repeat things for me. Spreading awareness brings empathy from others and helps you find kind people around you. That's also how I found really great friends. So I encourage you all to proudly show that you are a cochlear implant user. It is, after all, a gift that connects us deaf people to the hearing world. If you don't notice, I am a very talkative person. My friends would know that I would become silent only because I've run out of batteries. In fact, it was during those moments when they remember. Oh yeah, you're deaf. My friends were making fun of me, but they actually forget I'm deaf. I've had situations where I would be talking to a friend and then I receive a signal, ta 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 ta, indicating that my battery was running low. I'd have to stop the conversation midway, change my batteries, and then resume as if nothing happened. There's also another situation where I had to stop the class exam, specifically a dictated exam, where the teacher reads aloud the essay questions and everyone in class would have to wait for me to finish changing my batteries. It used to be a bit embarrassing, but they do get used to it. Plus, it was really nice of them not to make a fuss and to patiently wait for me. I was also really fortunate to have people around me to make me feel not so different. But the worst time to run out of batteries would be during an important event and I forget to bring batteries. It was painful to sit through the remaining time in silence. Being in the hearing world for so long, it felt so awkward knowing how much sounds I was missing out. So, my fellow cochlear implant users, be a responsible person and make sure to always bring a spare batteries so you do not make the same mistake as me. Still, isn't it impressive how there's such technology that allows deaf people to hear? My friends would say I was like Robocop, or basically a robot. When batteries work, I speak. When it runs low, I mute. Someone actually asked me if it was possible for my cochlear implant to function like a cell phone. In a way, someone could help me cheat in an exam and no one would know. Not that I'm encouraging cheating. But with the improvements of wireless technology, I wonder if cheating is possible. But seriously, don't cheat. I'd like to share more, but I believe it's time for me to wrap up. I'll say it again. Don't be ashamed to show your cochlear implant because technology is amazing and it has improved greatly. I haven't mentioned it earlier, but my first cochlear implant batteries used to be in a mini backpack. Now it is lightweight and convenient. It's been more than 20 years since MedAl first brought cochlear implants to my country, Philippines. I've been hearing for 21 years. I've struggled to survive in the hearing world, and just last year, I graduated from a university. Finally! Now, I am here as a speaker. I am a cochlear implant user, and I have an invisible disability. Thank you for listening to me.
Oh, thank you, Joanna. Uh, is this everything, or do you want to add something by yourself?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, as you've known, I can't hear on the left ear, so I'm still I still have only one cochlear implant, and I also have two sisters who are also cochlear implant users. Um, I forgot to mention in the video, but we can't always disregard the efforts of my parents. Before we started learning to speak, because my mom really took a lot of effort to put us into speech therapy, and I think it lasted for a year or 2 years, 5 years. Oh, okay, it's we had speech therapy for 5 years, and we had therapy 3 times a week, and then 2 times a week, and then it became once a week, and we eventually stopped when once we entered elementary school. And so yeah, even if we could speak and we could hear, I've already mentioned in the video, but we always have to inform people, important people like the teachers, that we are hearing impaired. So we always sat in front of the class. Oh, yes. We also attended a really small school with a class of only at most 15 students. So it was relatively easy for us to pay attention to class. So I think that's why we were able to adjust well, and that's pretty much. If you have any more questions, you can just send a message there, and I'll be sure to answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Your story is wonderful, and the movie is very special. I hope you will not. Well, you say that people say that you speak too much, but I don't think so. I think you have to continue and tell your story and never stop. Thank you very much. If
Oh,
anyone,
okay.
I want to remind everyone, if you have questions, you can type them in the Q&A section below in Zoom.
Okay.
And all the panelists are encouraged to look at the questions, and if you have answer, you can type the answer directly in the Q&A. So
Okay,
now,
so I'm looking at the live question and answers right now, and someone just asked me if I could get 2 cochlear implants. Actually, a few years ago, my mom actually asked me if I would consider getting a second one, and perhaps I will if opportunity arises. But I didn't really feel so much need for a second cochlear implant. Yeah, that's my decision for now.
by the way, is it free in your country?
Come again?
I asked
Oh no, it's not free in my country. What do you mean by free?
free. Do you have to pay for it in the Philippines?
Ah, okay. Oh, okay. So no, is it free? No, it's not free. Okay.
Not free.
No,
Yes,
we have to, in the Philippines, we have to pay 100%. There is not a lot of opportunities for um cochlear implant people to have um financial help, because I don't know how to say.
it's
Okay,
okay.
I'll ask my mom right here.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so but basically there's
Okay.
really not so much. I think there used to be financial help a long time ago, but it wasn't 100% free. It was only they would only pay a part and then you have to pay the rest. So as far as I know, the people here would have to do fundraisers so that they could um, get cochlear implants surgeries.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope we will continue and see you and listen to you. Maybe next time even your mother can say a few words, but this time, this time we have to continue because we are short in time. So I must go to our last presenter, and this is Dr. Ruth Warwick, President of the International Federation of Hard of Hearing People. Ruth, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Avi, and thank you to all of the presenters. I am not a cochlear implant user, so I won't be speaking about my personal experience in this regard, but I just wanted to say that it is very good to know that cochlear implants are available if I should lose more of my hearing, that this is an option. And it's also good to be informed in advance. So I really appreciate the information. So the reason I wanted to present today is in order to share with you some of the work that FHOH is doing in relation to cochlear implants. And it is important that we have advocacy because as one of the speakers mentioned, there's a very low uptake of cochlear implants. So we have a lot of work to do as consumer organizations to increase public awareness about cochlear implants. So FHOH itself is a consumer organization, the International Federation of Hard of Hearing People, and over 25% of our members are cochlear implant users. So that's a fairly high percentage. So this is an issue of concern to us. And as a result, we created a cochlear implant advocacy project with 4 goals. First, to create greater awareness of the benefits of cochlear implants among potential users, which is one reason why we're holding these webinars. Secondly, to emphasize cochlear implants as part of the continuum of technological interventions for state support and funding. And to hear, for example, in the Philippines, that there's no support. This is a state for advocacy, and they're not the only country, unfortunately, where there is little support for people who need cochlear implants in terms of funding. And we are a number 3 goal, working with other stakeholders to bring about greater awareness about cochlear implants. And I'll talk a little bit more about an initiative that is just very recent and very exciting. And then lastly, we're updating our policy paper on cochlear implants. And many of the comments here today that have been very helpful. Our policy paper was developed back in the 1990s when cochlear implants were relatively new. And we needed to amplify the voice of hard of hearing people in support of cochlear implants, because at that time there was a fair amount of opposition to cochlear implants, particularly in young children, less so in older adults. And I think the public opinion has certainly changed a lot, and there's less opposition now, but there still is some opposition to cochlear implants in certain countries and in certain quarters. Our paper is on the website, but we are in the process of revising it. And we're looking at the scientific information, findings from the International Consensus paper on cochlear implants, but mostly we're making this a consumer paper based on consumer experience. And we have set up an editorial team to revise the paper. And of the 3 members on that team, 2 people have a cochlear implant. Some of the topics we're looking at are creating greater awareness of CIs, describing the benefits and encouraging early implantation for children and adults as well. And we're encouraging a person who needs 2 CIs to be eligible for 2 CIs, not just 1. And taking from what Lisa said today, I think the concept of also single-sided deafness and asymmetrical loss comes into play in terms of an important point to make in the paper. Accessibility to CIs, including access to expertise and funding, will be another component in the paper. Informed decision-making. It's always up to the consumers to make the decision about what's best for them, but they need the information. And in this regard, we need to really lobby for professionals to become better informed, because those are people that we often get advice from. And then the importance of aftercare cannot be underemphasized. So the process for this paper in terms of next steps, we do plan to hold a webinar once we have a draft, and we'll get your views. And if you would like to be part of that webinar, we're sending out a survey after this one. We always do that. And you can, one of the questions will deal with whether you want to be involved in this process, or you can email us directly at info@fho.org. And then I would like to close with letting you know of a new development. A cochlear implant community of action network has been launched, and it will have its website officially launched on February 25th. And did you know that this is International Cochlear Implant Day? And KICA, the network, aims to increase the number of children and adults globally who have access to cochlear implants and lifelong aftercare by raising awareness of the health and social economic benefits of cochlear implants for those who can benefit from it, as well as healthcare professionals and wider society. Empowering user-led advocacy awareness raising activity to influence government and health funders to invest in cochlear implants, and supporting us as CI advocates with the tools we need to achieve change. And there are some members, I think, from KICA that are participating in the webinar today, and maybe they will speak during the question period. And finally, if you would like to contact me directly, I have my email here. So thank you very much for taking part in this, and I look forward to the question period.
Okay. Thank you, Ruth. Now, I would like to go over the questions. You can all go to the Q&A section, and I will go over the question, and some of them need some more words from the panel, and I would like the panelists to say a few things about it. The first question is about sleeping with cochlear implant. I think some of the users do not understand this point, and I would like, maybe Naama, would you like to say a few words about this issue?
Yes, I can try, but I don't have a very clear answer. Usually it's not recommended to sleep with your cochlear implant on, but I know that some people do it, like mothers to babies, or like, but usually it's not recommended.
I understand that mothers, for example, sleep with cochlear implants because they want to hear at
Their
night,
baby.
if something happen and their help are needed, if there is some emergency.
If they cannot trust their, the father to wake up. Depends.
Well, we must say that there are some solutions for
Right.
this issue with
Right.
some assistive technology that maybe can vibrate under the
Right.
pillow or something like
There
this
is.
and wake us up at night because, as you said, it is not recommended to sleep with the external part of the cochlear implant. It is not comfortable and usually people do not do it. So this is the recommendation, but everyone can do what is good for him. Someone wrote that Daria mentioned something about changing processors after 5 years. Daria, would you like to say a few more words about it? Daria? Do you hear us? I see that the picture is frozen. So maybe later we will try again. Someone asked Liz, have you heard of the Cochlear? Do you know something about the Cochlear, Liz?
The answer is no, I haven't heard of it. And I'm getting some feedback from people who are looking at online programs for rehab, which is certainly something I considered at one point, but it was a time issue. Now it may be something. That's the other thing. I'm not sure there's enough research. And once people have been implanted for a while, some of us on this panel have, it may be that we could benefit from rehab even so, even later. And I don't know if Dr. Tash has seen any of that, anything, but I haven't seen anything to look at that. I'd be interested to see if progress can still be made later after 5-10 years of using, or 20 years. Mimi has used it 20 years, right?
Okay, thank you. Frida is writing that her experience is identical to yours, Liz. And Steve Powers, also for you, Liz, he's asking, have you heard of the Cochlear Implant Research Lab at Arizona State University? They have YouTube videos that shows how the cochlear implant sounds. It shows researchers modifying the cochlear implant output to better suit a cochlear implant user to understand speech. Is this support service still available to a cochlear implant user struggling with significant distortion issues? Do you know something about it, Liz? No? Okay, so let's see if there are others interesting questions. Someone is Heike is asking, can you go to a sauna with a cochlear implant? Anyone want to answer this question? I think the problem is with the high humidity in the sauna. Is this a problem for a cochlear implant?
Apparently so.
I don't. And I don't think I have a very formal answer to this question. Like, it's not.
Yes. Well, I can say that modern hearing aids and also cochlear implants have some immunity to humidity,
Right.
but I don't know exactly what is the limitations and if the humidity in sauna is maybe a little too much for a cochlear implant. So we cannot say if we recommend or not recommend this action. So a little more searching is needed, and maybe anyone with a cochlear implant can consult the audiologist or the professionals that helps him with the. Maybe they will have a clear answer for this question.
Can I just jump in here? There's someone who's responded in answer to the question saying that he's from Finland, the home of the sauna, and says you can't use your CI in a sauna. So Robert is very emphatic about that.
Okay, so we have one evidence.
And it is not very comfortable to use cochlear implanted sauna because it is very hot, and if you have two cochlear implants on your head, that is not really perfect. Even if it is hot outside, it is not so comfortable because it is hot in your head. But do you know, I like to ski. Okay, this year no, it's not possible. And I am searching for a helmet for cochlear implants, and there is no possibility to find any. Maybe anybody knows about that. We are too small market that they will produce, and maybe that is very individual, or because we don't have cochlear implants in the same places.
Daria, if you are with us now, someone asked before about the 5 years of replacement the processor, and if you want to say some more about this issue.
Yes, I can answer. I said that I'm really happy that I live in Slovenia and that they take care for us with cochlear implants. Even a lot of people are very unhappy that they live here, but every 5 years it is possible to change external parts, so processor, and that is perfect. I think so. We have that in our law, in fact, and that's marvelous.
Let me add that in the US, it's the same under most insurance coverage and most of the processes, both under the federal program, Medicare for seniors and people with disabilities. You can get it every 5 years, and under private insurance as well, usually.
Yes, but I read in that cochlear implant experience many times, people from US speaks about the problems which they have in US, and that they are not possible to get a cochlear implant, that's just too expensive. And that's very interesting. Yes, you have a different health system, and you are organized in different way, but that is very sad sometimes to read their stories.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to say something, Liz? Unmute yourself, please.
I was just going to add that for the most part, private insurance and Medicare covers it. For people who are low income under Medicaid, that is much more difficult. Some cases will be covered and not everything will be covered. And again, for some people who don't have private insurance, that could be a problem. So yeah, it's not universal. It's not everybody, and that's a problem. It should be available to everyone, but it is available to many people in the US.
Yeah, thank you. Well, last question before our time is over from Carol Willans is asking, is using hearing aids in one ear and a cochlear implant in other work for many people? And I can add, is there any implications of using cochlear implant and the hearing aids together?
I can tell you as a user,
Please.
it works for me very well, and always again, except for the fact that, you know, perhaps I would have done better with 2 cochlear implants, but it works well. There's now some companies are now providing a hearing aid that you can work with, that they talk to each other so they can work together. So yeah, it is possible to use it and to do, I feel, I love having the sound connected with both. I don't know if Dr. Tash wants to add.
Yeah. Anyone else on this issue? Anyone with experience of using a cochlear implant and the hearing aid together? No? Okay. So I think our time is over, and we have to close this webinar. And before we close, I want to thank all who helped us, especially the people from IDA. Their help is very important. They help us to make all the arrangement for this webinar, especially Gina that I know, and if there are other people, thank you to them too. I want to thank Mary, our captioner, and Gardinand, our interpreter, and if I may also to Dr. Ruth Warwick, who make many arrangements behind the scenes. And with this, I would like to maybe Ruth, you want to say some word before we close?
I would just like to remind people we'll be sending out a survey, and some people have asked if they can have access to the PowerPoints. So we will collect those from the speakers, if all the speakers agree, and share them with you. And thank you so much for being involved. And thank you, Avi, for chairing the session. And it's been very exciting, and we will continue our advocacy work. I find sessions such as this fuel me in moving ahead with doing further advocacy.
Okay, so we are looking forward to hear from all of you. If you have any questions, any remarks, anything that you want, you can write to us, and we will be glad to hear from you and try to help as much as we can. So thank you all, and goodbye, and see you on our next webinar.
Bye.